Bhagavato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Buddhang saranang gacchami.
Buddhang saranang gacchami.
Dhammang saranang gacchami.
Dhammang saranang gacchami.
Sanghang saranang gacchami.
Sanghang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami.
Tisarnakamanang nititang. Bhanatipata veramani sikapadang samadhiyami.
Anatipata veramani sikapadang samadhiyami.
Adinadana veramani sikapadang samadhiyami.
Adinadana veramani sikapadang samadhiyami.
Kahamesu me chachara veramani sikapadang samadhiyami.
Kamesu vichachara veramani sikapadang samadhiyami.
Musavada veramani sikapadang samadhiyami.
Musavada veramani sikapadang samadhiyami.
Surameraya majapamadatana veramani sikapadang samadhiyami.
Surameraya majapamadana veramani sikapadang samadhiyami.
Imani pancha sikapadani silena sugating yanti silena boga sampada. Silena nibuting yanti tasama silang visotaye.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Brothers and sisters in the Dhamma, we are greatly honored to have Ajahn, and we welcome Ajahn to Penang. We as Penangites feel very blessed to have great teachers coming to Penang frequently to teach and guide us. Before we begin tonight's talk, please allow me to give a brief introduction of Ajahn. Ajahn Kusalo is a Buddhist monk in the Thai forest tradition. Ajahn was born in New Zealand and ordained as a monk in 1992. Prior to his ordination, Ajahn Kusalo lived in a householder life, and worked as a builder and carpenter. He has been trained in the lineage of Ajahn Chah, a renowned Thai forest meditation master, and spent several years practicing in the various monasteries, including Amarati Monastery in the United Kingdom and Mahindarama Monastery in New Zealand. Ajahn Kusalo is known for his practical approach to the Buddhist teachings, emphasizing mindfulness and meditation in everyday life. He has led retreats and given teachings around the world, sharing his experience and wisdom both to the lay people and to the monastics. And before we begin tonight's talk, we would like to seek permission from Ajahn to share the Dhamma and to teach the Dhamma for tonight. And tonight's Dhamma topic will be the beginning of the end. Ramacha Lokadi Pati Sahampati Kankajai An Divaram Ayatacha Sandita Sakta Parajaka Jatika Dese Tutamam Anukampi Mam Pajam. The Brahma Sahampati, Lord of the world, with hands palm to palm before his heart, requesting a blessing. There are beings here with only little dust in their eyes. Please teach the Dhamma out of compassion for them.
Namo tassa. If someone could give me some water. Good. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. So very nice to be with you in this actually very wonderful facility. As Sister was mentioning, I have a background in building, so I can very much appreciate the effort involved, the design details and so forth, and opinions. This is the wrong colour, this is the wrong size. What about that? Not enough of these, too many of those. But it's a splendid facility. The importance of having centres, places where people can come together, basically with goodness as a focus. We can define goodness in lots of different ways. But coming together with goodness as a focus is, it's important. And obviously my choice of seeing Dhamma as the highest goodness, if you will. Anyway, the beginning of the end. Have we already begun? 8 o'clock, I think, so we're already 12 minutes towards the end. The beginning, when is the beginning? When did you begin? Can you remember? I can't. they tell me stories. Actually, no living witnesses to my birth remain. They're all dead. I have a piece of paper. So essentially what this reflection, it's about time. When is the beginning and when is the end? We tend to create our lives as a series of points. That's the definition of a line, isn't it? A connected series of dots make up a line. And my life is through memory. I can remember when, but there's an awful lot of gaps. Some of the highlights or the more extreme events, maybe traumas, and difficult young people being subjected to different abuses, social, emotional, psychological scarring. Those are not always remembered in consciousness, but they're there. Was the beginning of my life. When did today begin? We say, well, today is, I think it's Monday. When you're travelling, the points of relativity start to blur. Sometimes I have to just stop and try and remember which country am I in. You know, maybe I have a nap or something, you know, like a power nap, and you kind of wake, whatever wakes you up, and I have to orient myself, think, where am I? And then when? New Zealand has this kind of twilight. I don't think you have it so much here. We're a lot further south. I can remember waking up and we have our morning meditation at 5 o'clock. And I looked at the clock and it was 10 minutes to 5 and I'd just woken up. Oh my goodness. So I'm running down the hill. I was relatively junior at the time. But it was 5 o'clock in the afternoon. I get to the meditation hall expecting everybody to be sitting. It took, because the level of light, the daylight, more or less the same, 5 o'clock in the morning and 5 o'clock in the evening. I'd fallen asleep in the afternoon. So then I had to make the choice, you know, do I hang around and wait, or do I go back to my kuti? We look to create these points of certainty. We look to create points of absolute, confident reality. This is true. So the beginning, we begin at 8 o'clock. Or is this the beginning of the talk? I'm just about to finish the introduction and then I'll get on to the talk. So we've had the beginning of the introduction. So it's very arbitrary actually. Here we are. And in terms of Dhamma, there is no beginning and there is no end. There is no birth and there is no death. The Dhamma is akaliko, it's timeless. So we create in relation to that which changes. So our time generally is in relationship to the sun, the movement of the sun and the earth, and to some extent the moon, as it rotates around the earth and so forth. And our biorhythms, sleep and the changing seasons. And we extend that to ourselves. So there's a convention, of course, and most people have a clock, on their phones or on their wrist or wherever. And we synchronise our watches, and we all agree that it's 10 past 8. We have, I don't think here you have, in New Zealand we have summertime. So there's a certain point that the government decided and we all changed the clocks by an hour. It's quite nice actually for monks because the clocks change but the sun doesn't change, so we can actually have food until it's about 1 o'clock because it's to do with the sun, the zenith of the sun, not to do with the clock. So midday is the middle of the day, and most people say, well, that's 12 o'clock, noon. But actually the zenith of the sun, when the sun is at the highest point, that's the middle of the day. So this sense of time that we create and that we put upon ourselves, so often you hear this expression, time just goes so quickly. The day just flies by. Well, 1 minute at a time. It doesn't go fast, it doesn't go slow. It's not like just because you're busy or whatever, the sun's not going any faster. It still travels at the same speed. So what we're relating it to is ourself, and we get lost in busyness, activity, productivity. So we lose that relationship, essentially with nature. That's how we measure time. It's the movement of nature, whether it's the seasons or the sun or the moon. So we've just had the new moon Apposita. Most people don't really notice the phases of the moon. To create myself as a being locked in time is the foundation of suffering. I am a person who has all these problems, all these hindrances, all these defilements, and I need to practice daily, weekly, and in time I will get something. That's the conditioning that we all have since we were so young. You do this and you get that. The only time that you will ever be happy is now, sitting here. And of course, this is not fixed either, because you're not going to be sitting here for ever, in the conventional sense. So there is change, but it's the way that we identify our sense of self as a person in relation to change. And of course the body is one of the main points of identification, and it is changing. I'm getting old now. I can't deny the loss of youth. I used to. I can remember my mother came to visit me at Amaravati in England once. I guess I must have been about 40-something then. And I used to do I used to do publishing and working on computers and stuff, and I had my own office. And anyway, my mother came and I was squinting at the... She said to me, "You need glasses." I said, "No, I don't." She said, yes, you do. Look at you. This resistance, because it was, I don't know, I wasn't going to get old. My eyesight's nothing wrong with my eyes. Of course, mother being mother, she took me by the ear or something, took me off to the pharmacy, and we got some spectacles, and it was kind of like, oh, yeah. I could see the difference. Youth is something that's a lot more comfortable than old age. It just is. We bounce a lot easier. We get sick, we bounce back. We fall over, literally. And we sprain something or we bruise ourselves when we're young. It heals so quickly. That's not the case as you get old. But it's that identification. I am old. No, well, the body, this body, and that's the conundrum, that's the challenge that we, this question, like, I have a body, and this is my body. So there's me, and there's my body. So who or what is this me? And that's really the aspect of the Buddha's teaching that makes Buddhism Buddhism, the teaching on self, anatta. So we perceive ourselves as having been born and perceive ourselves as progressing. Me, it's the same, me. I mean, obviously it's not. If you've got any childhood photographs, have a look at them. You're not this big anymore. You've grown up, and in some cases out. Physically, it's obvious. It's just not the same body. There's enough continuity, and that's where we get caught. That's where we create time, the sense of continuity. This piece joins on to that piece. Monday joins on to Tuesday, joins on to Wednesday, and November joins on to December, and I join on to I. There is this persistent kind of quality. And the body is obviously the most tangible. We can weigh it, we can measure it, we can take its temperature and so forth. It has the appearance of persistence, but obviously it doesn't persist, it's changing. The mind, I say, I used to believe in Santa Claus. Yeah. I don't know, Malaysian culture, I imagine Santa Claus has a place. But in New Zealand, my generation, Santa Claus was a big deal. And I really believed in Santa Claus. I don't anymore. I've changed my mind. Yeah. I used to believe in the tooth fairy. When you had a tooth, you put it under the pillow and the tooth fairy would come, and in the morning there'd be money. I never used to think, where does the tooth fairy get the money from? They have, in tooth fairy land, they have the same money. Mostly I just wanted the money. I don't believe in that anymore. So the things that we believe in, the way that we construct our reality, there was a beginning when Santa Claus entered my world, became a part of my reality. Maybe I was 2 or 3 or 4, I honestly can't remember. And there was a time when Santa Claus ended as part of my world. But it's that phase, it's that space where we actually believe that's true. So in theistic religions, people believe in God. Some old man or sky or different people. I mean, when people say, do you believe in God? So what do you mean by God? You tell me what you mean by God and I'll tell you whether I agree, whether I like that. Everyone has a different story, different explanation. I have my own. I mean, the word God, it's quite a powerful, having grown up in a Christian country, it's quite a powerful image, quite a powerful symbol, just like this one behind me here. I don't know what it's made of, fiberglass, ceramics, stone. It's an object, yeah, like a chair or a microphone or a body. It's a thing that represents something. To believe, like I used to believe in Santa Claus, that he was this magic man who would come down the chimney and it's a way of explaining to children. So what's the reality? What lies behind time? What lies behind this perception of, like, I believe in myself. I was born. There was a beginning. Well, I can say the beginning of adolescence. That was, the childhood bit. That was the introductory bit. Adolescence, teenage years. That was really the beginning of my life, or my 20s. So we have memories of the changing seasons, as it were. I can remember winter. We've just finished winter in New Zealand and now it's springtime. But there's no fixed thing called spring. There's no fixed thing called summer. They're arbitrary labels or ways of kind of approximately defining kind of something. So when people say, who am I say, well, I'm Kusalo. Had this very nice introduction, so you all know who I am. This much. How much do we know? We take pieces, slices in time. At one time, I was a quantity surveyor. Another time, I was a builder. Another time, I was a construction contracts manager. Another time, I was... So it's contextual. It's relative. It's not fixed. And to see that and relax around, like currently, I am, I don't know, what am I? I'm the speaker at this place. I have the microphone and somebody else will speak, and so it's not fixed. I'll speak and then I'll stop speaking. It's when we attach to, when we try and create those kind of clusters of convention as absolute realities. So time is certainly one of those. And this reflection that the Dhamma is timeless, akaliko. And it's an image, like the Hindu goddess of time, Mother Kali, is often presented as giving birth, literally giving birth, and eating the babies as she gives birth. So this cycle of birth and death, and that's the nature of time. As we create things, time consumes them. Time will consume this building. Somebody or somebodies, a group or whatever, but this building took birth and it will be consumed by time. And that process is seemingly endless. The suggestion and the teaching that we can question that. The proposal is that the deathless. There is the unborn. There is the unconditioned, the uncreated, the unformed, the unoriginated. Because all conditions, like bodies, this building, all conditions were born and they will die. What is it that doesn't get born? And because it was never born, it will never die. It's timeless. We can call it God if you like, and we're all children of God, or symbolism, metaphors. So just functionally or in terms of practice, the question that I find very useful is this question of who is it? So to say me and my body, who's this me? But experientially, like at the moment, I'm using the microphone, I say, can you hear me? Yeah? Can you hear me? Nodding. How do you know? How do you know you can hear me? Yeah, well, there's a vibration in my ear. How do you know there's a vibration in your ear? Or I can repeat what you say. How do you know what you're repeating is actually what I said? Oh, because the person next to it. But it's that quality of knowing. Yeah? So those of you with your eyes open, looking this way, can you see my hand, waving my hand? How do you know I'm waving my hand? Because you can see. So different senses, but the knowing is the same. The knowing of sound is the same as the knowing of sight, as through all of the senses, the knowing of smell, the knowing of taste, the knowing of touch, the knowing of mental formations, mind objects, contacted by the mind. Sankhara's mental formation. So I know. People say, oh, that was a really bad meditation. I say, well, how did you know? How do you know that? Well, I was there. Who was there? All of the, you read the levels of attainment and states in Buddhism, the sphere of infinite space, boundless consciousness, these kinds of things. But there's a presence there. Otherwise, how would people write about such things, talk about such things? Because they were there. These are states that can be observed, and they are conditioned. This is one thing that the Buddha was very clear on. All of the jhanas, the form jhanas, the formless jhanas, these are conditioned states. They're ways of practicing, but they're not liberation, they're not freedom, they're not timeless, they're not the deathless. So what we tend to do, this quality of knowing, call it mindfulness, call it awareness, call it presence, connection, lots of different words we could use, consciousness. What we tend to do is identify with the objects of awareness, the objects of consciousness, what we know. So what I know is the temperature of the room. I can feel a bit of air moving. That's very nice. So I am cool. To create that as a person, and it's usually desire, when conditions are how we think they should be, there's actually very little sense of self. You can observe that. It's only when our comfort levels are challenged in some way, when it's too hot or when it's too cold, or when we're hungry, or when we're tired, or when people are disagreeing with us, that we start to create this sense of self, what I want. and what my right is and what I should have. It shouldn't be like this, it should be like that. To say it's one of the curses of being a builder. You have this critical and just being able to relax and say, well, actually it's fine. I feel quite confident that it won't fall over, this building. I feel quite safe, I can relax. So one of the definitions, or lots of different ways of defining enlightenment, one of them is the absence of greed, hatred and delusion. So right now, are you feeling particularly greedy? Well, I imagine it's relatively neutral. Are you feeling extremely angry? Relatively neutral. Delusion, confusion, that's the degrees of that. But just to see, the absence of anger and the absence of craving, how far away is that from liberation? And recognising that point of balance, it's not so far away. We tend to create these expectations in time. I will do this and I will get that. And just seeing, but what do I know? The only thing that I can know is this. This is the beginning and the middle and the end of reality. And it will change. But right now, it's like this. And it's okay. Yeah? Relax. Don't make it a problem. Yeah, but. Yeah, that one? Yeah, but. We could have thicker cushions. My ankles are on the mat. I could have a higher chair. I could, have Coca-Cola, or I could have a No, I can't have a hamburger. Dang, suffering, you see. And time falls away when we relax. That's why people go on holiday, because they're less constrained by time. Except most people tend to book their holiday up. They go jet skiing and then they go hang gliding and then they go scuba diving or whatever. It all gets... Relaxation is an art. And it's so close, it's not so far away. Just to be able to let go. Third noble truth. Suffering, the cause of suffering, is wanting this to be different than what it is. I want this to be different. Well, you're going to suffer because you can't be different. Right now it has to be like this, and it changed. Look, it's already changed. But right now it's like this. Okay, practical exercise. Everybody make a fist. Come on, make a fist. Squeeze, really tight, really tight. Fingernails into the palm of your hand, really tight. Okay. Really, it's quite uncomfortable, yeah? After a while it gets uncomfortable. And then relax. How did you do that? How did you do that? I just said relax, but you did it. And to see that relaxation is not something that you get, it's the result of letting go. The stress, there, you just let go of the stress, just relax. So relaxation, it's just a result. It's a result of letting go. Third noble truth, cessation. Craving's the problem. You want it to be different than what it is. I wouldn't mind being younger, or at least get some better knees. It's good enough. Being able to relax and the more that we can relax, the more clear our mind will be, the more spacious our mind will be. clarity, brightness, the better choices we will make. When the mind is all with anger or desire or confusion or jealousy or fear, or when we're all defending me and my rights and what I should have and how the world should be, that, I tend to make choices that are not always so skillful. You know, anger is a good one, that expression, being blind with anger, blind with rage. It's a common expression. Because it's true. People become so blind to the extent they'll actually murder people. They become so overwhelmed, so consumed by their anger, they lose all relativity, they lose the precepts, they lose all perspective. When the mind is clear and calm and bright, stable, relaxed, we can see those energies. It's not to say that anger won't arise in a situation, but we recognise it. And we know what happens when we follow that path. I mean, the 5 hindrances is a basic list, but we all have our own mixture of energies that lead us down an unskillful path. Being able to recognise those, that's the first thing. So we need enough clarity to be able to recognise the energy, and then we need enough stability and calm, confidence, relaxation, to not be caught up in that. And that space, a place of abiding. I mean, you ever have that, like when you're meditating, especially if you're setting a timer, which I do encourage, you know, say, well, I've got 10 minutes, set a timer for 10 minutes and let the timer decide when the end comes. Rather than, because you always think, oh, I must phone so-and-so, oh, I have to do that now. I can't. No, I said 10 minutes. I can do that. 15, 30. When you're meditating, when you actually relax, the sense of time changes. I don't know, is that your experience? Certainly mine. Sometimes it seems to go quite quickly, sometimes it seems to just, you know, when you're sitting comfortably, there's no sense of time because we're not able to relate anything to anything. We're sitting with our eyes closed. You could count your breaths or heartbeat or something like, I suppose, if you wanted, but allowing that unformed space, that neutral space, that space of calm and relaxation. Anyway, I am watching the time, at least I'm watching this thing on the wall here. I don't know, you normally have some questions, Q&A? Yeah. So anyway, I'll maybe leave that there. That's the end. Or is it the beginning of the end? I haven't quite ended yet, but there's more to come.
Do you have any questions from the floor? Or anyone who have got questions, keep them.
Yeah? You have a question? No? You're just capturing the moment.
If there's no question from the floor, I received one question from someone who just passed it to me before the talk. It says, Dear Ajahn Kusalo, I have a very analytical mind and are drawn to Bhakti Sampada. How does one use this handling as a practical approach in daily life?
Yeah, I mean, the usual chain is the 12-link avijja paccaya sankhara, sankhara vijnana, that whole chain. But I find that I guess the elemental one is when there is this, that arises. When this ceases, that also ceases. So I quite like the simplicity of that. But practically, just cause and effect, good action has good result. That's dependent origination. Not very complicated. I mean, the challenge, of course, is being able to discern what's good and what's not, because bad action has bad result. And the nature of karma is that it's very difficult to match cause and effect because it's very complex. We don't function independently. But just that formula of cause and effect, living a good life will bring a good result. If you live a good life, you'll have a good life. So, I mean, analytical minds, a blessing and a curse, like being a builder. You know, it's like a knife. A knife can cut somebody's throat or it can remove a cancerous tumour. And so every condition has these two sides to it, or more than two really. But so the limitation of an analytical mind is that we're not robots, we're not machines, not yet anyway, maybe in a few hundred years with all the implants and AI that's coming. But at the moment we're we're very sensitive, and a lot of our relationship with the world is just based on feeling. And just to think, so how do you feel about that? Not to what do you think about that, but developing a confidence in that first level response, which we can call maybe intuition, like a gut feeling. And again, going back to that thing, that the more calm and clear the mind is, the more we can trust that first response, intuition. The more confused and kind of caught up in greed and anger and so forth, the more we have to rely on intellect, analysing. My job as a quantity surveyor is kind of interesting. Maybe now this was all pre-computer, so it was all pen and paper calculations. They were just even desktop calculators were fairly new and quite expensive. And calculating, like I used to cost buildings like this. Construction company I worked for would get the plans and I'd say, well, our company can create this building for, $3.5 million. Just a guess. Don't know Malaysian economy. But I used to find it quite funny because a lot of time I was just guessing. And my experience in the building and, studying buildings and learning about buildings, something. So it was almost like an art form, divination. And I was surprised how often I was right. So were my bosses. So they gave me more money, which was very nice. But trusting that rather than calculating, because that takes like I don't know the language. Intellect, is it intellect that does all the thinking and the analysing? Or is it intelligence? The real limitation with words, but it's somewhat abstracted. I put myself in kind of robot mode or computer mode rather than trusting in the experience that I have. And then I can, my intuition says like this, and then maybe I can analyse some of those thoughts and see limitations and say, yeah, but that's a good idea. But like so much of innovation and invention is accidental. My favourite one is Archimedes. I don't know if you know him, with fluid displacement. I think he was Greek. Anyway, he was having a bath. When he got into the bath, the water level rose, and suddenly had this insight, and he went running down the street naked, saying, "Eureka, Eureka, I found it." That's the story anyway. But he wasn't in the laboratory, or he was just hopping into the bath. And he had that insight, he got that. So you can't think your way to enlightenment. My opinion. You can't think your way to enlightenment. So intelligence, intellect, analysis and everything will take you a certain distance. But where you're going, if we can think in terms of spatial, where you're going is a place that you don't know. Because if you knew where you were going, well, you'd be there already. You'd know the extent and the depth and breadth of Nibbana. It wouldn't be a question. You can't work it out because it's unconditioned. And intellect and reason and logic and computers are all about conditions, calculations, comparisons. So intelligence will take you to a certain point, to a threshold. That point is a jump-off point, and what's there is void, is the unknown, and you just have to jump. It's a leap of faith. Ultimately, that's what it comes down to. So we test the theory, like I say, like with the precepts. Spend a whole day going around breaking the precepts, punching people and stealing things, and then at the end of the day make some notes about the result, and then spend a whole day keeping the precepts, being kind to people and helping people and being generous and telling the truth. And then, so we make that experiment. Meditation, we try different meditation techniques, so forth, and we gradually find out, what's the result of that. This is the action, this is the result, this is kamma, this is vipaka. And that refines the mind, as I say, like stability, clarity, brightness, non-confusion, non-anger, non-fear. And it's from there that we can jump. Because we can't calculate. It's like heaven, it's like God, it's like ultimate truth. We can't define that. People like to, so they look to like Dhamma, which is very analytical, but it's just more words. So I often say, is this a cup or is it a mug? You've got to look in the Abhidhamma and it'll tell you. I mean, we want to know. We want to know. And conventionally it's important, you know, you send somebody to go and get a cup and they come back with a wheelbarrow. I mean, I suppose you could drink out of a wheelbarrow. But... So to see that the conventions that we're operating in, and intellect and intelligence and so forth, is just working with conventions. Numbers, words, letters, all of these things. And Nibbana is outside of that. It's timeless, it's akaliko. It's to be experienced individually by the wise. It's a direct, imminent experience. And when is that going to happen? Now. Always now. And we say, yeah, but. We're our worst. We just get in the way. Just relax. That's it. Just let go. Yeah, but what if I let go, nobody will know who I am? Or what'll happen to my money? What? Nothing changes. It's just our relationship with conditions is non-possessive. I was joking at lunchtime with one man whose wife was there. I was saying, this is your wife, yeah? You own this woman. She's your wife. And kind of that's convenient. We use that language. This is my wife, this is my husband, this is my dog, this is my tree, this is my body. But it's just convention. What's the actual reality of that? It's just relationship. And it tends to be possessive. We create ourself in time, in space. So there's this, I mean, there's a long answer, mostly because there's no, you cut me off by putting your hand up and asking another question. There's this, like in terms of language, like vijnana is one of the 5 khandhas, it's the last one, consciousness it's usually translated as, and it's clearly conditioned. The 5 khandhas, one way of defining the human condition. But there's another, a different context that vijnana is used, vijnanang anidasinang, consciousness that is boundless, consciousness that is signless, consciousness that is non-relative. What's that? It's in the sutta. I think there may be only 2 references, but we need to consider the boundaries today and tomorrow, here and there. Really question those and see them just as conventions. So what is the knowing? What is this quality of being alive? What's the nature of love? Love is not separative. It's not possessive. True love, it's not a possessive relationship, is a disaster. True love is non-possessive. It's non-judgmental. These all sound like the qualities of an arahant. You know, just playing with words. But really investigate, questioning the nature of that experience. Any hands up? I could talk forever about Dhamma. I don't know if that answers the question. Mostly relaxation. I think Malaysian culture is quite tense, competitive, everything. Look at all the squares lined up, and I mean, you say, well, it's COVID. But there is a kind of not being critical or anything, but different cultures have different levels of relaxation. You know, we think about maybe the Pacific Islands, the Fijians and the Samoans and, you know, the traditional culture, pretty laid back, not in a hurry to get to work. You know, go and catch a fish and you know, it's not that easy, is it? But how to create less tension, how to relax more, and truly relax, not relax in terms of just do something different, you know, watch a movie instead of doing your tax returns or something. Actually, just stop and relax. Just relax. Just relax. Watch the sun go down or something like that. Nature's very good in that way. Watch the fish swimming in the tank. What are they thinking, I wonder? Are they thinking avijja pachaya sankhara, sankhara vijnana? Glub, 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 glub. Anything else from anyone? Gentlemen, yeah?
When you say relax, does it mean that we don't bother, not to bother with the distraction, irritation, whatever the instigators or irritators? Does it mean by that? To relax, not to be bothered?
Yeah, so, I mean, if you're going to relax and just say, oh, well, I won't go to work today, maybe later on I'll go and catch a fish, you know, and then you don't catch a fish, and then you find out that you get the sack at work, you don't have a job anymore. So that's the challenge, is adapting lifestyle, moving towards simplicity. And it's a challenge. I mean, I don't know, I mean, you've all got different situations. Maybe some of you are students, some of you are retired, some people, you know, householders, family, running a business. Everybody has a different set of parameters to work with, but how to make it more simple. That's how to make it less complicated. So get rid of the television, really challenge the amount of time you spend on the internet. I mean, do you really need to read that thing or watch that YouTube video or whatever? Really? What happens if you don't? Well, you get restless maybe. Well, you just learn to relax with that. Have no phone days. Just pick a day and just put the phone in, or give it to a friend. Someone that won't mind you hating them because they won't give the phone back. But I mean, just thoughts that distraction is something that we can work with. There's essentials. You have to eat, you have to have somewhere to live. So, you know, you have to pay a mortgage or pay rent or whatever, things like that. You have to buy food. But does the food have to be like really first class? Just, sort of some rice and vegetables. I don't know. I think food here is pretty cheap. What you drink. Can you just drink water? Spend a week and just drink water. Nothing else. Just drink water. Unless you have some medical thing. But just drink water. What's that like? So somehow this shift has to start somewhere. There has to be a beginning. Because the end is actually what we are looking for. It's the end of the world. But it's not annihilation or destruction. It's the end of my possession of the world. It's the end of me and mine. Ne tang mama neso amasami neso atati. Not mine, not myself, not me. That's what we're looking. So how can we trim the dimensions of our perceived self? So we need to, especially if you have family, you may be elderly mother and father, or kids, young kids, or whatever. You have to. Can't just ignore them. But that voluntary simplicity. I was part of a group in Canada, a lay group. They weren't Buddhist, but that was their experiment. They would meet once a week and discuss ways of voluntarily simplifying their lives. So they invited me and they said, well, we can't think of anybody living a more simple life. And so I shared, my lifestyle with them and tried to find ways, specific ways, because it was a small group. They were saying my life's like this, my life like this, and say, well, can we trim this? Can we have less of that? Clothing, how much clothing? How many pairs of shoes did Imelda Marcos have? One for every foot for every day of the year, I think, or more. I have one pair of sandals, it's good enough. Does the job. Maybe you have to have a, special work shoes or something. I don't know. I mean, how to make life more simple? That's my suggestion. I can't be specific. I mean, you and I, we could sit down and make a map of your day and your life and look at your financial demands and but just that inclination, that attitude of mind, a willingness to live a more simple life. And it's a challenge because, one of the things I do with, I do quite a bit with schools and young people and things like that. And I say, hands up everybody who likes peace. Hands up, everybody puts their hand up, of course. And then I say, okay, let's just be peaceful for half an hour. And after, a few minutes, it's difficult for young people to sit still. That's enough peace. Can we do something interesting now? Something exciting? Because peace is not very interesting. It's not exciting. Has no colour. It's like water. It has no. That's why people don't drink that much water. Well, maybe more these days. But you drink tea, you drink coffee, you drink cola, you drink wine, you drink all these. Because it's much more interesting when it has kind of. Why do people use chilies all the time? Just to spice things up. The Spice Girls. Not the boring girls, the Spice Girls. So it requires an effort. Simplicity requires an effort. Letting go requires an effort. because our habits have developed often through the desire for pleasant feeling. So the art of being at peace with unpleasant feeling. Because you're going to get it, aren't you? I guarantee, even between now and when you go to bed, you'll have some unpleasant feeling. You'll bump your head or forget something and get angry, or a car will cut in front of you. Unpleasant feeling is just part of the mix. This human condition has both. Well, three: pleasant, unpleasant and neutral. But mostly it's pleasant or unpleasant, and we become very attached to pleasant feeling. But you can't. I tried really hard as a young man to keep pleasant feeling going. Parties and girlfriends and drugs and music and go to the beach, and unpleasant feeling is unavoidable. So learning to be at peace with, because it'll change. That's the thing about unpleasant feeling. Went for a walk with Stephen this morning. We were going up this quite steep hill. I said, the nice thing about going up a steep hill is you get to go down. Every up has a down, but every down has an up. And that's the conditioned world of which we're a part. Well, our bodies or whatever. So simplicity requires an effort, letting go requires an effort, being peaceful requires an effort, relaxing requires an effort. Samavayama, it's one of the path factors. Right effort, finding that balance, just pushing enough and pulling enough, just finding that balance. But just that emphasis on simplicity. I was very, lucky or whatever, but even quite young, like 14 or 15 or something, I had this thing like working was, I used to watch my parents and, their friends, and working, it just seems like hard work. But I had this insight. It was like, the more you need, or the more you want, the more money you need, and the more money you need, the more you have to work. So if you don't need anything or don't need much, then you don't have to work very much. So I didn't. I grew my hair long and became a hippie and lived on a commune and grew cabbages and potatoes. But still, it was just a different kind of work, actually. But that attachment, that carrot on the stick to get more, to get a bigger one, a better one, a faster one, a more fashionable one, all of these delusions. I always tell the story. My mother my mother and father were in Hong Kong. They had friends there, had a jewellery shop. John had this, $10,000 Rolex. And he was saying, oh, look at this, it's got so many diamonds and it has platinum thing and a gold thingy here. And go on about this. Fairly new, he just got this thing. He was very, very happy to have this. And my mother said, oh, John, what's the time? He said, oh, it's nearly 9:20. She said, oh, that's funny. That's what mine says too. Her $5 digital. So he worked so hard to get the Mercedes-Benz, to get the Rolls-Royce, to get the whatever, you know. And there's nothing wrong with those, but it's how much do we want to invest? How much of our life do we want to invest? How much? Because it's stressful. That because everybody else wants it. So there's a fight. There's only so much to go round. So the competition, the fighting, the corruption, the cheating, the deceits, really unpleasant. So, okay, so you're successful, then you get it. My last business at a factory in West Australia, very successful, lots of money. I thought, well, that's enough. So I was telling my friends, my peers, similar businesses, and I'm going to seeing if they wanted to buy some of the equipment and stuff like that. I said, well, they said, you're crazy. You're just at the peak. You just keep going, get more money. Get more money, what for? How many watches can I buy? $5 each. It was around the time digital watches were just coming in. I had one glued on my motorcycle. I had one glued on the front cab of the truck. I had one on my workbench in the factory, one on my... There's only so many places. I can't even remember if I had one on my wrist. It's hard work. So how can we... how much is enough? When can I stop and just relax? When can I take time? Well, I have all the time in the world. And this compulsion to fill it up. As I say, people going on holiday, people come back from holiday and they need a holiday. Oh, that was exhausting. Well, we went skiing and we climbed up the mountain and... Why don't you just stay home and relax? Maybe do a bit of gardening, or which is not, and it's fun to travel and see new things. And so, what's the price? What's the price we pay? The idea, when I'm 60, 70 or whatever, and the kids have all finished school and the house is paid for. There's a lovely cartoon somewhere showing all the different ages, too young to meditate, like a little kid. And then there's a romantic, too in love to meditate. Too busy getting qualifications to meditate. Too busy developing a business to meditate. It goes on like this, and then the last caption is like a tombstone. Too late to meditate. So just creating, remembering just to stop. You can do that anywhere, on the bus, in the supermarket. One, if you have go back to watches again, or clocks, with the second hand, just watch the second hand for 60 seconds, 1 minute, 60 seconds. Just see how time changes when you're actually watching. Does that 60 times. I always think, gosh, a minute takes a long time. When you're really paying attention, time changes. But taking time to stop, just stop. 3 breaths. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, one for the Buddha, one for the Dhamma, one for the Sangha. And then carry on. Door handles. When you come to a door, unless you have special powers that I don't have, you have to stop, yeah? You have to stop. hand on the handle, breathing in, breathing out, and then open the door and go into the meeting with just that little bit more calm and composure, or whatever it is that's on the other side of the door. Just actually creating spaces of stopping, and call it meditation, whatever, doesn't any other name. Call it composing or relaxing or balancing. Did a balancing retreat in Bandha Uttama. The emphasis on balance, finding balance. And we literally had rocks, and we were balancing rocks, finding that physical balance point. When do you feel balanced? Often we're leaning into time. What's happening next? Leaning forward. And the more we lean forward, we have to stop from falling over, so we end up running into the future. It's when we're still, when we're truly balanced. But of course it's not about physical balance, it's about that mental composure, stability. It's one of the translation for samadhi I like. Stability or balance, composure. Concentration has this sort of, it's a good discipline, training the mind, sure, but the quality of composure, poise, to be poised, like a dancer.
Do we have any other questions? Otherwise, we'll move on to offering of Pavarana. Going once, going twice.
The end.
We'd like to thank Ajahn Kusalo for such an insight and for sharing the wisdom.